What if the reason your belly fat won't budge has nothing to do with how many calories you're eating? What if the real issue is happening deep inside your cells, at a level most diet advice never touches? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could completely reshape how you think about stubborn fat. Let's start with something that surprises a lot of people. Visceral fat, that's the deep fat packed around your internal organs, doesn't behave like regular body fat. You can't simply starve it away with a calorie deficit. It responds to signals at the cellular level, and when those signals are disrupted, specifically when tiny structures inside your cells called mitochondria stop working properly, your fat cells essentially go into lockdown mode. They hold onto stored energy and refuse to release it. And no amount of willpower can override that biological lock. Now here's the part that caught my attention. There are 3 common, affordable seeds that appear to directly support the cellular pathways involved in this process. And they work in a way that's completely different from conventional diet advice. Most of us have been taught that stubborn belly fat comes down to a simple equation: eat less, move more. But the reality is far more complex. There are people who follow strict diets, who exercise 5 or 6 days a week, and who still carry significant visceral fat, not because they lack discipline, but because the underlying cellular environment has never been addressed. My name is Dr. Leana. I'm an emergency medicine physician with a background in metabolic research. After seeing countless patients struggle with visceral fat that simply would not respond to traditional methods, I began investigating what's actually happening inside the fat cell itself. And what I found fundamentally changed my perspective. The issue isn't simply about energy balance. It involves disrupted mitochondrial signaling, a problem that most dietary approaches completely overlook. Now, an important disclaimer before we go further. This information is for educational purposes only. It does not replace personalized medical advice. Always consult your doctor before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have existing health conditions. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through why mitochondrial dysfunction may contribute to persistent visceral fat, 3 specific seed-based foods that research suggests can support the relevant cellular pathways, the biological mechanisms each one targets, and a simple daily protocol with amounts and timing so you can get started. Before we dive in, if this kind of content is helpful, consider subscribing and leave a comment telling me what you've struggled with most. The diet side, staying consistent, or just feeling lost about what's actually happening in your body. I read every single one. Alright, let's build the foundation. Your mitochondria are the energy-producing structures inside nearly every cell of your body. Think of them as tiny power plants. When they're operating efficiently, they take in nutrients, including stored fat, and convert them into usable energy. When they become damaged or sluggish, they enter a kind of survival mode. Fat burning slows dramatically, and your body shifts towards storing energy rather than spending it. Now, visceral fat is a unique type of fat. Unlike the subcutaneous fat sitting just beneath your skin, visceral fat is metabolically active. It produces inflammatory compounds and hormones, and it communicates directly with your liver and pancreas. When mitochondria in this tissue become dysfunctional, a vicious cycle begins. The fat generates more inflammation, which further damages mitochondria, which in turn traps even more fat. Published research in metabolic science has documented this self-reinforcing loop extensively. Mitochondrial dysfunction in visceral fat tissue appears to be both a driver and a result of fat accumulation in that area. This is precisely why surface-level dieting often hits a wall, and it's why the 3 foods we're about to discuss may work differently from anything you've tried before, because they target deeper mechanisms. The first food is pumpkin seeds, and the reason they matter here goes well beyond their reputation as a healthy snack. It comes down to a specific protein called SIRT3, a mitochondrial sirtuin. SIRT3 helps activate the enzymes that power your mitochondria's electron transport chain, the actual machinery that converts stored fat into usable energy. When SIRT3 activity declines, that machinery slows down and fat oxidation stalls. Pumpkin seeds happen to be one of nature's most concentrated sources of both magnesium and zinc, 2 minerals that SIRT3 depends on to function. Magnesium alone is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, many of them directly inside the mitochondria. Research has shown that correcting magnesium deficiency, which is estimated to affect a large portion of adults in Western countries, can help restore sirtuin activity and support fatty acid oxidation. 2 tablespoons of raw hulled pumpkin seeds provides roughly 74 milligrams of magnesium and 1.3 milligrams of zinc, enough to meaningfully support these pathways, especially in people who've been subtly deficient without realizing it. The second food is hemp seeds, and the mechanism here is one most people have never encountered. Inside your fat cells is a receptor called PPAR-alpha, peroxisome proliferator activated receptor alpha. When this receptor is activated, it specifically signals visceral fat cells to break down stored triglycerides and release them into the bloodstream to be used as fuel. This process is called lipolysis. Hemp seeds contain gamma-linolenic acid, or GLA, a specific omega-6 fatty acid with a unique property. Research suggests it can activate PPAR-alpha directly. Animal and preliminary human studies on GLA-rich foods have shown promising effects on fat metabolism, with some research indicating that GLA consumption may support visceral fat reduction beyond what calorie control alone achieves. About 1 tablespoon of hemp seeds daily, added alongside the pumpkin seeds, provides approximately 2.5 grams of GLA within a range that aligns with amounts explored in the scientific literature. The third food is sunflower seeds, and this one closes the loop in a way the other two cannot. Even if SIRT3 begins restoring mitochondrial function and PPAR-alpha starts mobilizing visceral fat, there's a third obstacle: ceramides. Ceramides are inflammatory lipid molecules produced by dysfunctional visceral fat tissue. They're one of the primary substances that damage mitochondrial membranes, meaning they can undo the very repair work you're trying to accomplish. Sunflower seeds are among the richest food sources of tocotrienols, a specific form of vitamin E that most standard supplements don't contain. Unlike the more common tocopherol form, tocotrienols have been studied for their ability to inhibit ceramide production and support healthy fat metabolism. Research in animal models and early human studies has shown that tocotrienol supplementation may reduce ceramide levels and support mitochondrial membrane integrity. 1 tablespoon of sunflower seeds daily provides a meaningful dose of tocotrienol-rich vitamin E without exceeding safe intake levels. Now let me ground all of this in what the broader research tells us. First, reviews published through the National Institutes of Health have examined multiple clinical trials on magnesium and metabolic function. The consistent finding is that restoring magnesium in deficient adults supports mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation, the technical term for the process that converts stored fat into cellular energy. Second, studies on GLA-rich seed consumption suggest that GLA may support greater visceral fat reduction compared to other fatty acid profiles, even when calorie intake is held constant, and pointing to a metabolic mechanism rather than a purely caloric one. And third, research on tocotrienol-rich vitamin E in individuals with metabolic challenges has shown improvements in body composition markers alongside better mitochondrial function indicators. It's important to note that while this research is encouraging, many of these studies are still in early stages and individual results will vary. Here's your daily protocol. I call it the handful blend. Combine 2 tablespoons of raw hulled pumpkin seeds, 1 tablespoon of raw hemp seeds, and 1 tablespoon of raw sunflower seeds. That's roughly 1 handful, approximately 200 calories total. Eat it in the morning or with your first meal of the day. Fat mobilization processes tend to be more active during daytime metabolic cycles, so morning consumption aligns better with your body's natural rhythms. Preparation matters more than you might think. Keep all 3 seeds raw and unroasted. Heat above about 160 degrees Fahrenheit can degrade tocotrienols and partially break down the GLA in hemp seeds. Store them together in an airtight container in the refrigerator. Seed oils can oxidize quickly at room temperature, which may diminish their benefits. Pair this handful with a source of dietary fat. Avocado, olive oil, or a whole egg work well. Both tocotrienols and GLA are fat-soluble, meaning their absorption improves significantly when consumed alongside fat. Expect a timeline of roughly 4 to 6 weeks before you might notice changes. These mechanisms are restorative, not stimulant-based. They work through consistent daily signaling, not sudden spikes. Patience and consistency are essential. Now let me share 3 mistakes that commonly undermine this approach. The first is buying roasted or salted seeds. Roasting destroys the heat-sensitive compounds that drive the PPAR-alpha and tocotrienol mechanisms. This is the most common error, and it's entirely avoidable. Raw hulled seeds are widely available and cost essentially the same. The second mistake is giving up in the first 2 weeks. Most people feel no noticeable difference in the first 10 days and stop. The SIRT3 and PPAR-alpha pathways appear to require a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks of consistent daily input before the cellular environment shifts enough to produce observable results. Quitting early is the single biggest reason protocols like this fail. The third mistake is replacing the whole seeds with isolated supplements. Separate magnesium capsules, GLA supplements, and vitamin E pills don't replicate what researchers call the matrix effect of whole foods, where fiber, protein, and cofactors work together to slow absorption and extend the signaling window. The research showing benefits specifically used whole food sources. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Visceral fat accumulating with age is not inevitable. The people who successfully address it aren't genetically special. They consistently support the cellular systems that govern fat metabolism, systems that exist in your body right now, ready to be supported. Your mitochondria can recover, your visceral fat can respond. It begins with understanding the right mechanisms and then providing your body with the specific inputs it needs. You have more influence over this process than you've been led to believe. If this changed how you think about visceral fat, hit subscribe. I break down this level of detail every single week. And drop a comment below. Are you going to try the handful blend? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.